Welcome back to Spiritual Summaries. Today, we journey through Exodus chapters 13 to 18. From the commemoration of the Passover and the parting of the Red Sea, to Moses' encounter with his father-in-law Jethro and the wise counsel he receives. Join us as we delve into these pivotal moments, and as always, I encourage you to read along in the King James Version or your preferred Bible to experience the full depth of these events. Exodus chapter 13. As the Israelites prepare for their journey, God gives Moses instructions about consecrating every firstborn. Both of man and beast, the firstborn belongs to the Lord. This act serves as a reminder of how God spared the Israelites' firstborn during the 10th plague in Egypt. Moses also instructs the people to commemorate the day they came out of Egypt, the house of bondage, by observing the Feast of Unleavened Bread annually. During this festival, no leavened bread should be eaten for 7 days, and the feast's first and last days are to be observed as special days of assembly and rest. Moses emphasizes the importance of explaining these rituals to future generations, connecting them to the mighty hand of God that brought the Israelites out of Egypt. It's also a reminder of the haste with which they left, not having time to let their bread rise. As the Israelites journey, God doesn't lead them along the shortest route to the Promised Land, fearing that the sight of potential conflict might discourage them and cause them to return to Egypt. Instead, they are led by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, showing God's continuous guidance and presence. Exodus chapter 14. In this dramatic chapter, the Israelites face their first major challenge after leaving Egypt. God commands Moses to lead the Israelites to camp by the sea, specifically between Migdal and the sea, in front of Baal-zephon. While it may seem they are trapped, God has a plan. He intends to harden Pharaoh's heart again, so that the Egyptian ruler will pursue them. This would give God an opportunity to showcase his might and earn glory at Pharaoh's expense. As expected, Pharaoh and his officials change their minds about letting the Israelites go. They regret their decision, asking, "What have we done?" and decide to pursue them. Pharaoh readies his chariot, takes his army, and goes after the Israelites, catching up to them while they are camped by the sea. Seeing the approaching Egyptian army, the Israelites panic. They lament to Moses, accusing him of leading them to their deaths in the desert. Moses, however, reassures the people to not be afraid and to stand firm, for they will see the deliverance the Lord will provide. God then instructs Moses to raise his staff and stretch out his hand over the sea, causing the sea to divide and create a path for the Israelites. Meanwhile, the angel of God and the pillar of cloud moved to the back of the Israelites, acting as a barrier between them and the Egyptians. The Israelites crossed the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on both sides. The Egyptians pursue them, but God throws their chariots into chaos. As dawn approaches, Moses stretches out his hand over the sea again, and the waters return, swallowing the entire Egyptian army. The chapter ends with the Israelites seeing the great power of God and putting their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. Exodus chapter 15. Chapter 15 begins with a joyful and triumphant song, known as the Song of Moses. The Israelites, led by Moses and Miriam, Moses' sister, sing praises to the Lord for their miraculous deliverance from the Egyptian army at the Red Sea. The song celebrates God's unmatched power, describing how he threw the chariot riders into the sea, causing the waters to cover their adversaries. The Israelites declare that the Lord will reign forever and ever. They describe the terror that must now be gripping the surrounding nations, the Philistines, Edomites, and Moabites, as they've heard about what God did for his people. The song ends with a confident affirmation that God will lead them and plant them on his mountain, the place he has prepared for his dwelling. Following the song, the narrative continues with the Israelites' journey into the desert of Shur. For 3 days, they find no water, and when they finally come across the waters of Marah, they are unable to drink it because it's bitter. The people grumble against Moses, wondering what they will drink. Moses cries out to the Lord, who shows him a piece of wood. When he throws it into the water becomes sweet. This place becomes a testing ground for the Israelites. God makes a decree and a law for them, testing their faith. He reminds them that if they listen to him and do what is right, they will be free from the diseases that afflicted the Egyptians, for he is their healer. They then travel to Elim, where there are 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camp there by the water. Exodus chapter 16. As the Israelites continue their journey, they reach the desert of Sin. The whole community grumbles against Moses and Aaron. The memory of the pots of meat and bread they had in Egypt becomes a bitter contrast to their present hunger. They lament, wishing they had died in Egypt instead of facing starvation in the desert. In response to their complaints, the Lord promises to rain down bread from heaven. He tests the people, instructing them to gather enough bread each day for that day only, except on the 6th day when they should gather twice as much in preparation for the Sabbath. Moses and Aaron convey God's message, emphasizing his power in their role as mere servants. In the evening, quail cover the camp, providing meat. Come morning, the desert is coated with a layer of dew that turns into thin flakes resembling frost. The Israelites, unfamiliar with this substance, question, "What is it?" Moses explains that it's the bread the Lord has given them. They name it manna. It tastes like wafers made with honey. Every man gathers as much as he needs, but by the next day, any surplus has rotted and is filled with maggots. On the sixth day, however, the surplus doesn't spoil, preserving itself for the Sabbath as a day of rest. The Israelites eat manna for 40 years, until they reach the border of Canaan. Moses instructs Aaron to place an omer of manna in a jar and keep it as a testament for future generations. Exodus chapter 17. The Israelites' journey is again marked by challenges and divine intervention. They set out from the desert of Sin and, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded, they camp at Rephidim. However, there is no water to drink, leading to a fresh wave of complaints against Moses. The people's anger grows, even suggesting they stone Moses. They question, "Is the Lord among us or not?" In desperation, Moses cries out to the Lord, who instructs him to take his staff, the one he used to strike the Nile, and go ahead of the people. He is to strike a rock in Horeb, and water will gush out for the people to drink. Moses does so in the sight of the elders, and water flows abundantly. Because of the quarrel and testing of the Lord, Moses names the place Massah, testing, and Meribah, quarreling. But the challenges for the Israelites don't end with water. The Amalekites come to fight the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses directs Joshua to choose men and go out to fight them. Moses, along with Aaron and Hur, goes to the top of a hill. As long as Moses holds up his hands, the Israelites prevail, but whenever he lowers them, the Amalekites gain the advantage. Aaron and Hur provide support, helping Moses keep his hands raised until sunset, ensuring an Israelite victory. Following the victory, the Lord instructs Moses to write down a record of what happened and to make sure Joshua hears it because God will completely blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heavens. Moses builds an altar, naming it "The Lord is my banner," declaring that the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Exodus chapter 18. Jethro, the priest of Midian and Moses' father-in-law, hears of all the wonderful things God has done for Moses and the Israelites. He decides to visit Moses, bringing along Moses' wife, Zipporah, and their 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer, whom Moses had sent away previously. Upon arrival, Jethro and Moses have a heartwarming reunion. Moses recounts all the challenges they faced in Egypt, the miracles God performed, and how the Lord delivered the Israelites from the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro rejoices and praises the Lord, acknowledging that he is greater than all other gods. Jethro then observes Moses' daily tasks and notices how he sits from morning till evening judging the people and settling their disputes. Concerned, Jethro warns Moses that he will wear himself out along with the people, for the task is too heavy. He offers wise counsel, appoint capable, trustworthy, and God-fearing leaders over groups of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. These leaders can handle minor cases, while Moses can address the difficult ones. Moses heeds Jethro's advice, choosing suitable men and appointing them as leaders. This new system of governance eases Moses' burden and helps in efficient administration. After offering sacrifices to God and sharing a celebratory meal, Jethro returns to his own land. That wraps up our exploration of Exodus chapters 13 to 18. Witnessing the Israelites' journey from bondage to freedom and the establishment of a new system of governance, we see the profound ways in which leadership and faith intertwine. What stood out to you in these chapters? How do you feel about Jethro's advice to Moses? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, the stories in the Bible are rich and multi-layered. I encourage you to dive deeper by reading them firsthand. If you found this summary enlightening, consider subscribing to Spiritual Summaries for more biblical insights. Until next time, stay inspired and keep exploring.